Sunday Bloody Sunday started with Vikings losing to the Detroit Lions in very dramatic fashion. Late field goal saves it for the Lions, who now have the same record as the Purple, and, of course, now the early tiebreaker as well. Division race wide open again. Ben Leber was there. He joins us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline, and as always, Ben's appearances with us brought to you by the Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. All right, I'll give you the easy toss-up question. What for Ben Leber is the overriding message of yesterday afternoon's game at the People's Stadium?
I think the overriding message is we got a pretty mentally tough football team. And that's not easy to do, to go toe-to-toe with one of the best in the league, and we are as well. But to be down like we were, and it just seemed like we were on the cusp of possibly getting blown out, and maybe a repeat of what happened the week before with the Cowboys. You know, the Lions doing it at our place. You know, it was sort of teetering on that. And we're a team that didn't come out, or hasn't come out in the third quarter after halftime and been super strong offensively. And I thought it was a great sign that we could go sort of punch for punch with those guys and get knocked against the ropes a little bit and come fighting back and fight back so much that we take a late lead. And, you know, so again, I don't know. There are sometimes some moral victories. I know I can claim that as a fan. I couldn't claim that as a player, but I think there's a lot of moral victories to be had out of this.
So what went the critical 3rd and 4, where the Vikings, they get another first down, maybe they have a chance to end the game without the Lions even getting the ball back, or certainly not back with as much time, and perhaps having to go even further. Just a play that didn't work. I mean, I don't want to overanalyze it, but it was clearly very big. What did you see on that play?
You know, I didn't see much in real life. You know, now that I've kind of looked back at it, you know, it happened kind of opposite where I was standing, and all I saw was the fireball that Sam threw. I'm like, dang, I don't know. You know, the percentage of catching that one just velocity-wise is going to be really tough. But, you know, I heard this morning, and I hadn't heard that until I walked into the power trip this morning, about how some people were saying that Addison ran the wrong route and all this other stuff. I'm like, I haven't heard that, but, you know, it did look like a little discombobulated, you know, the spacing. You know, all these plays, all these pass concepts, you know, they have spacing built in, because you don't want one defender to basically guard two guys. And it did seem like the spacing was a little off between receivers on that side. And so I'm not smart enough. I don't have enough insight to know if somebody did run the wrong route or whatever, but it just seemed like something was a little off. And, you know, I don't know. Maybe that's just one of those things that happens. Game is it maybe coming off the bye week and just the team collectively being a little bit rusty. We certainly saw that. We can maybe chalk that up with some of the pre-snap penalties, but yeah, it's unfortunate in a critical down and got to have it, and they just came up short.
Maybe we've got two outstanding, intrepid producers in Studio A. I'm getting a lot of complaints from people who want to listen to Leber, and they say they can't via the iHeartRadio app. So you're already aware of this?
Working on it.
So we're working on it. Yeah, I don't know if it was something I said, because apparently they're playing Fox Sports Radio on the iHeart app rather than this program. So we are aware of the issue, and apparently we have two of our brightest minds working on it as we speak. Brett Blakemore.
The only two minds available.
Wow.
That's who we have.
Yeah,
that's who we have.
Well, I was trying to say that in a nicer way, but that's the other way to look at it. Because I don't want to deprive people of the Leber commentary.
Clearly, you said something that wasn't so nice that got you banned.
Well, that
might have been a corporate decision.
On that basis, I would have been banned so many times by now. It's not even funny. Okay, so tell me about this Goff guy, because I have historically tended to look down on him. I didn't buy it when the Lions made the move. I just didn't like the way he moved. I didn't like the way he looked. I think I profiled him in the wrong way. He didn't seem to have that swagger. But the more I see him, it looks to me, and, you know, we had Cam Bynum on earlier, and this is the way Bynum put it. He said, look, the thing about Goff is, this is, I think, a compliment to the Lions coaches and their plan. He said, they put him in a position where he has a great opportunity to excel. They make him They give him plays that that give him a chance to be very accurate. I don't know. I felt after this last game, maybe that's a little unkind to him, because to me, he threw a couple of pretty big-time throws as well under semi-duress down the field to keep drives alive. Where are you on Goff?
I'm pretty high on Goff. I agree with everybody's sort of eye test. I think when he was with the Rams, I thought there was a little bit of a goofball nature to him, and not necessarily like a fun goofball, maybe Jared Allen sort of way. But I was like, I don't know if this guy really, really gets it. And now that I've watched him play in the division now several times, I'm a big fan. Yeah. I think that whatever they're doing, and sometimes it's maturity. Sometimes it's just a matter of like just figuring out what it feels like and what it is to be a pro, and kind of calming your nerves and calming. It's a weird thing to be a quarterback where you have to process and think so rapidly and so quickly, but yet on the exterior, you have to be sort of calm and cool and collected. And then, that way you can deliver the ball accurately and you don't get ahead of yourself. And so it's sort of this weird contrast that you fight with yourself on how to process. And I think that he's shown me, especially with some of his pre-snap reads. I mean, he did a great job of just identifying what he thought that our defense was doing. And I had a chance to talk to Frank Ragnow after the game, and he's just like, man, I mean, every time he's like, the last two games, this game, he's like, you guys just give us so much to think about. I mean, he was like mentally exhausted from the game, even though he was in a good mood. And think about that from a quarterback standpoint. You got to see everything, and you don't know where these guys are coming from. So I want to just like, I'm a big fan of the way he can process, the way that he stays so calm. I liked how in this particular game, he saw something and just made the decision. He's like, okay, I see Ivan Pace. He's blitzing from depth, and I'm just going to throw it right to where he was at. And he knew exactly where his guy was going to be, and he knew where every single void was going to be. And it doesn't have to be a deep shot void. It can be a little check down, a little 8-yard throw just to get the ball out so he doesn't get hit. I thought it was a master class in how to deal with the blitz.
How would you evaluate Darnold's performance yesterday?
I thought it was really good. I really like the fact that he's getting a little bit more comfortable using his legs. I think he had 40-some yards rushing and a couple carries, a couple scrambles. I always sort of wish he would do a little bit more. And I thought there were some opportunities sort of in the second half where I thought he could have pulled the trigger a little bit more on some man-to-man situations where it seemed like we were singled up. We certainly had to avoid some of their safety work because their safeties are awfully good in the middle of the field. But I thought we had some opportunities on the outside in some one-on-ones. Like, hey, man, just see if our guy can make a play. Put the ball in a spot where, one of our guys can make the play and take a little bit more of a calculated risk. I say that without him, throwing an interception, and I understand that's what's probably going through his mind is not to be too risky. But I thought he could take a little bit more chances. But overall, I thought he played pretty well.
So on the pick at late in the second quarter, that ended up being a pretty big play because then the Lions got the ball back and drove rather clinically and drained the clock in doing it to get a late touchdown. It looked like he had another player open in the flat, I believe, at least. And do you view that as just a great defensive play, or is that a bad decision?
That was a really smart play by the safety Branch. You could tell that this is obviously a very well-coached team, both offense and defense. And his body language was he was not fooled when he was on that hash mark that he was landmarked on. It's like when you watch it back, he kind of sees the whole thing developing, and he's like, I'm not chasing anything. I'm not going to put myself out of position. I can play this deep part knowing that on these longer throws, I can trust my athleticism and speed to make that play. And was the ball slightly underthrown? Probably. But I still think that Branch was going to make a play on it. And I thought it was just a really well-coached play defensively. They knew that we like to run those deeper over routes, kind of cleared out that area, and he was just sitting over the top, and he could undercut it.
In the modern National Football League, apparently, explosive plays are defined as follows: catches of 16 yards or more, runs of 12 or more. I don't know who came up with those being the designations, but that's what they tell me. If you use that criteria, our vaunted defense gave up 11 explosive plays. They had, in the section where Goff was absurdly good, 4 possessions in a row where they scored, as he was 13 for 14, 183, 2 touchdowns. They turned a 10-point deficit into an 11-point lead. So let me ask you this. Do you feel at all that the Beeflo defense got exposed a little bit, some weaknesses there, or is this simply about a really high-powered offense that's averaging 30 points a game? And unfortunately, we were unable to meet the challenge, and it says more about Detroit than it necessarily says that Beeflo's got some things to ratchet up defensively for the Purple.
I don't know. It didn't shock me or surprise me. I mean, we knew going into this game this was, like you said, a high-powered offense, and our defense has some weaknesses. It just inherently does. That's when you're committed to bringing 5 and 6 defenders more than any other team in the league. Well, guess what? You're going to overexpose your secondary and your linebackers. It is impossible to cover that much grass, especially against these athletes that the Lions have, and with only 5 or 6 defenders. And even if you try to play man-to-man coverage all the time, you're still going to have openings, and there's still going to be some holes to the defense. So we knew that going in. That's why our pass defense, when you look at the stats, we're at the bottom of the league. But what we get by on is making offenses run a lot of plays, have to deal with our blitz package all the time, knowing that, in totality, they're not going to be able to block us the whole time, and we're going to get a sack, we're going to get a fumble, we're going to get a tipped pass, we're going to get an interception. That's how the defense works. So did it surprise me that they made some plays and they had explosives? No. What surprised me, I think, was how well they were coached, knowing they could pick up our blitzes and them just making the easy check down plays. And then I was disappointed in our tackling. I didn't think our tackling was great. And on the flip side, if you're a Lions fan, you can say, well, look, we got some really talented, fast running backs and powerful running backs and guys that know how to run after catch. So give us some credit. But, I think with our defense, if we don't change much, you're going to have to get used to giving up a lot of yards. But hopefully we make the big plays when they matter.
It is I did feel like it was the first game where the other team's quarterback didn't look flummoxed, like you said, by all the looks, that they did seem to have answers. And, again, I don't know how much that is just good preparation, how much of that is a quarterback who's, seems right now to kind of be at the top of his game, maybe a combination of both that we have with other teams. Or they've even talked about it, hell, after games, this is different. This is kind of funky. Being able to, and because a lot of the discussion has been, well, even this is harder for receivers because they don't even, based on the looks, they're not even sure how they're supposed to adjust on the basis of how difficult it is to read exactly what the defense is doing.
Yeah, and that is the tough part, because I think we you and I have talked about on this very show about how these receivers they're running and deciphering what coverage they're in. Are we in man-to-man? Is this like a press man look into zone? And you are going to adjust your routes accordingly, and your quarterback has to be on the same page. So it does give receivers even a lot to think about. But whatever they were doing yesterday, they had ample time when they picked it up. They did max pros a couple times, and they would leak out the tight end a little bit late. They just had a good plan. And, I talking to some of the players in the locker room, we talked to Shaq Griffin afterwards, and, it sounds like collectively they're taking the loss so hard because they knew that they made a lot of mistakes on defense. And so it's one of those things that we can come back end of the year, play them again, and hopefully it's another meaningful game. And I really have a lot of faith that we're going to clean up some of the communication issues we had in the back end, some of the coverage issues we had in the back end. And when we get all on the same page coverage-wise, I think it's going to be a whole different story.
Speaking of the chess match, I want to play a bit of sound here, if I can, although now where did my button bar go? All of a sudden it's gone. Somebody's messing. It's probably Blakemore causing difficulty here. Let me try to get to the proper page, the talking points page. I like to consider this sort of a battle of the chess masters, Ben Johnson, and our guy B-Flow.
3rd and 6 from the Vikings 7. Detroit 0 of 3 on 3rd down. They'll run Gibbs. He'll run up the middle. Touchdown, Detroit. Jahmyr Gibbs untouched for the first 15 feet of the 3rd down, and he walked into the end zone with a 7-yard touchdown run. That's 2 touchdowns today for Jahmyr Gibbs. And the Detroit Lions have taken a 20-10 lead.
Yeah, we were expecting pass on that play, no question about it, with the way our front was set up and how they were just looking to rush the football to throw the football, and we didn't get that. I mean, what team in 3rd and 9 from their 10-yard line runs the football? Not many.
Yeah, that was, in fact, we talked to Bynum about that, and he admitted it flat out. He said, yeah, we expected him in that spot to throw. We really did. And so we were light up front, a lot of extra DBs in, and so it was a very, it's an outstanding play call that took advantage of the vulnerability of what the Vikings were going with, correct?
Yeah, no, that's correct. I mean, I was even looking at it from my perspective, like, okay, well, they're probably going to pass here.
Yeah,
what
sure.
What sort of pass are they going to come up with? But, the thing is, like, it's not always that play. I know that we can dissect that play and all that stuff, but Laporta on the same drive had a big reception.
Yes.
Again, it's the middle of the field that they're killing us on. And yeah, we do a lot of blitzing with our safeties are vacating. You see our safeties out on the edges, and sometimes they're running back to deep middle of the field. And it's hard to sometimes hit those landmarks, and they're going to make the decision to be deeper than they are short, so they let nothing over the top. But then at the same time, we have our linebackers sometimes right at the line of scrimmage. They've got to drop, and sometimes their drops get shortened a little bit. They don't get as deep in some of the windows as well. But there was a couple big plays on that drive that I think bothered me more than that chess match play. I think they came out of a timeout, and everybody was like, all right, they're probably going to pass the ball here. I mean, that's the conventional wisdom. And then they end up running the ball, and it's like, okay, well, good on you guys. You guys got us.
Right.
A lot of our defenders were sort of looking at their pass responsibilities and almost like turning their backs a little bit when the ball was ran. I was more disappointed collectively that we're giving up so much in the middle of the field, and it really just seems like it's all correctable. Linebackers just drop a little bit deeper. If Laporta's running down the seam, you can't bite on something shallow and underneath. I mean, the whole idea is to let those plays happen, rally and make the tackle. You can't stop your feet or even second guess for one moment that you're going to take the guy underneath. Don't bite the cheese. Get back, get your body in that passing window, and hopefully be effective there. So it's those little things that we've got to clean up.
Yeah, that was, I thought, I don't want to turn this into Lions, fan line, but that drive, I thought, was especially impressive because it did two things. It ended it for them in a touchdown, and they drained the clock. They took everything out of the clock. Because you know how KOC works. We're going to get the ball to start the second half, but he's saying, well, I can get a bonus. If I can get like a minute, I'm going for at least 3, right, to add to the 7 we presume we're going to get when we come out. And they played that perfectly. Yeah, there was a Goff pass short middle to Gibbs for 18. That was on 2nd and 2. And then here's the Laporta play. It was 2nd and 11 at the Minnesota 36. Deep middle to Laporta for 25 yards. That's the play you're talking about that set them up at the 11.
That's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's like up the right hash offensively.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, so that's all true. So trap game Thursday? I mean, is this the kind? I mean, we're all assuming, you played a good close game against another good team. Good chance you could say both of them could end up in the postseason, maybe even against each other again. But there's always that concern about assuming too much, given the relative weakness these days, and even health, I think, in some cases of the Rams. Trap game? Are you very confident that the coaches will keep the players on the straight and narrow for Thursday night?
No, I don't think the trap game at all. I mean, based on, I think the mood of what I witnessed in the locker room last night, there's a lot of pissed off guys. There's a lot of disappointed players, and nobody was taking that loss lightly. I think they all realized they sort of let one slip through their fingers. And again, there was a lot of fixable mistakes, a lot of pre-snap penalties, a lot of that self-inflicted type that KOC's talking about. I think when that chews on you, you can't wait to get out there on Thursday.
Sure.
You can't wait to go back there and correct some of those things. So Absolutely not. I don't expect this to be a trap game at all. And then, if the rumors are true and Cooper Kupp's going to be back, they're going to be juiced up to have their big playmaker back. And it seems like they're running the ball a little bit better too. So, look, it's going to be another tough match. And again, it's not dire situation, but look,
No.
you can't drop 2 in a row in a span of 5 days.
Yeah, it's because and now the division race, has been opened up. That's what's interesting about it. You win that game. You want to get greedy, right? You win that game, you're 2 games up, not only on everybody in the division, you're 2 games up on everybody in the conference. And now within the division, obviously the Lions are even with you. Packers not far behind, and the Bears, who I still don't really take seriously, but because of their schedule, they may end up with a decent record. Real quick before we go, the Hop Splash Player of the Game. Do you award this award when the Vikings lose?
Yeah, let's make my Sierra Nevada Hop Splash Player of the Game something a little obvious. Let's talk about Will Reichert, please. Holy smokes! This kid is unbelievable, and I know we joke around because he does look like a kid. He doesn't even look like he's a grown adult out there playing a man's game, but he's got nerves of steel. I think all of us Viking fans can look at him with confidence now. Every time he goes out, and we're like, it's fine. He's going to hit it no matter what. They almost had enough confidence in to go for a 70-yarder. So let's give the award to him because he's just been absolute lights out, and he's been a breath of fresh air.
You wanted to see him try it from 68, didn't you? And you would have still, even with the penalty, you'd have put him out. See, I'd have put him out there for 73. I don't know what the analytics say. It sounds preposterous, 73 yards. But again, we're in a very different period when it comes to kicking. And I actually like that. There's no good chance at that point. But I think I actually would have thrown him out there as opposed to the old Hail Mary attempt that never even got off.
I wanted to see it because when he hit that 57-yarder, it cleared it by about 10 or 15 yards. So I'm like, if he hits it that well, and it wasn't like it was a low kick. He actually got it above the line. I even with the best attempt to block it up the middle, I don't think they would have blocked that one. And he drilled it. So I would have loved to have seen it. Think about the people on the edge of their seat for that kick. It would have been awesome. Yeah, it was outstanding. Safe travels to Los Angeles, California. We will chat next week. Thanks, Ben. Yeah, and thanks a lot. And real quick, I'm at Mystic Lake tonight, 7 to 8, Drinks Bar with Mr. Blake Cashman.
Nice.
So he'll be joining me. It's
Don't
free to
step on his feet.
attend, so come on out.
He's already, make sure he doesn't aggravate
Get him a
that
wheelchair.
injury. The turf toe. He's got the turf toe, right?
Oh yeah, I've got a pillow already ready for him, and he's just going to prop his leg up, and he's going to be good to go. Don't forget one of the most infamous moments in KFAN radio history was reporter Lugnut. That was the nickname I gave him, who used to occasionally get sound out of the Timberwolves locker room, stepping on Wally Zerbiak's foot. Now, as in this case, I don't think he got badly hurt.
He already had bad feet, though.
He did have bad feet. Well, there it is. That was it. You can't make that up. Play that again. Play that one more time. And you hear Lugnut say, "Sorry, Wally." He's
a big-time NASCAR reporter now.
Great.
He's huge.
Yeah, I'll make sure that I'll just stay away from it. I'll give him that sort of COVID 6-foot halo.
There you go. Perfect. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
That's Ben Leber. Let's put $1,000 in somebody's hand.
The Fan and 2 men and a junk truck. Want to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand with our National Cash Contest. The keyword, final one of the evening, is bank. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword bank. I'm going to ask, you're the professional. I'm not a technical wizard. But we have a number of people, I think, within the state suddenly are getting the Fox Radio Network national feed, sports feed, rather than us. And isn't it fair to say, and I know you're trying to work at it from your end, but isn't it fair to say, because a couple people have said, if I restarted my phone and it seemed to update. So is that a recommendation you'd pass along? Is there something either more or less complicated that could ease the issue? Because a lot of people are very frustrated. Well, first of all, they won't be able to hear us if that's the case.
That's a good point.
Secondly,
well, you could tweet it out.
I tweeted it out. I think we're back now.
Oh, we are?
I think we're good. People may have restarted their phone once we got it figured out, but I don't think
I'm getting a lot of fix are coming in now, but they think they did it themselves. It may be that whatever you guys did to reboot.
Let's let everybody believe it.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. We have Jonny Athletic scheduled for the bottom of the hour, and we will talk some Timberwolves with him because the NBA season starts tomorrow night. We are part of the big doubleheader. That is at 5:30. Yeah, the timing is obviously not great. It's a good listening day, the day after the Sunday Bloody Sunday for Minnesota sports fans. The Vikings lost to the Lions in very entertaining fashion. And then the controversial Lynx loss in Game 5, the winner-take-all Game 5, WNBA Finals. The technical wizards here, including Guardsy, have worked overtime to, they think, correct whatever online issue we have where I got pulled off and instead people were listening to Fox Sports Radio, the national feed. There's still some people there. I got like a bunch of people saying it's all good now. I got a few people saying it's not good. One guy says I'm outside the approved area to listen to this event. So we'll continue. This is fairly rare, but we'll continue to try to work on whatever the glitch is.
Evidently, it's nationwide, too. It's not just us. Other stations are having issues.
Oh, is that right?
According to Halvey.
Is this all part of the New York Liberty conspiracy?
This has Kathy Engelbert's fingers all over it.
If not her dress.
And her dress.
Because somebody said, well, maybe they didn't like what you were saying about Game 5. I said, well, no, actually it's the opposite. They would be pleased to hear that I'm not buying into the frenzy that we were deprived because the officials did it to us and we as much did it to ourselves. We'll get Jonny Athletic's view on it because I know he watched, if not all of the game, a lot of the game too. You know what's funny about Vikings-Lions, and I didn't make a talking point out of this, but Star Tribune reminds us that going into the game, your guy, Jameson Williams, the highly explosive, highly tooted wide receiver for the Lions, apparently was, he's getting the questions like everybody, they run a lot of stuff at you, a lot of coverages. They got 9 people at the line of scrimmage, and sometimes 5 of them bail out. Sometimes they all come. Are you going to be okay? And it sounds like Williams got tired of it because he said, doesn't matter. We just scored 40 back-to-back, which is true. The Lions did come in here with 40 points in each of their last 2 games. First time since 1962 they did that. But here's the irony of it, and I guess I hadn't really given this much thought because the Lions offense was so explosive. Vikings did confuse Jameson Williams, or they rendered him irrelevant, or the Lions found we're not going to fight it because they're giving him extra attention. 1 pass reception for -4. And yet they still, what was the final score?
29-28, right?
They still basically met their average, which is almost their average, 30 points a game, which tells you that they have a lot of ways to do it. And
31-29.
31-29. So they did meet their average and exceed it by a point. I mean, remember, going into the game, Lions were averaging 30. We were averaging giving up 15. So, again, I'm not calling for Beeflo's head, but this particular matchup, they won it. Their offense won it over our defense. Now, I know some people want to believe, look, after that middle section of the game where we couldn't stop them, and as I said earlier, all of their drives they never really got good field position. It didn't matter. They just kept going down the field. We did tighten it up a little bit, right? And we scored. The defense scored again, 7 points. Not a pick six, but a fumble recovery, and they get it going. And so they did tighten it up after that middle section where it just felt like, well, we can't stop these guys. They're unstoppable. I get that, but if you can still, on the road, score 32, get a late field goal drive and get some, good gains on that drive with them knowing one stop and it's over, you're a pretty good ball club. If you can do all of that without getting anything from Jameson Williams, who coming into the game led the league in average yards per catch at almost 23, and he was first in catches of 50-plus yards, 3 as well. It didn't matter. They didn't need him because they looked elsewhere and had very good success. I'm having a hard time right now thinking of a running back I like better than Gibbsy.
He's nice. He's nice.
I mean,
and Campbell said after the game, we've been waiting for him to pop. Like, he hasn't popped like that. He popped big time yesterday.
Aaron Jones has what we in the business call a really nice burst. But then I want to say, and this is no disrespect to Aaron Jones, the Gibbsy burst, that's on another level. That's pretty good stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I could easily see them. Well, we're going to play them once more there, right?
Week 18.
Week 18. Maybe home field advantage at stake. Who's to say? It wouldn't be shocking. I will be absolutely shocked if the Lions are not in the postseason for sure. They're good, and again, we've spent all this time talking about skill, and skill's important, and they have a lot of it, and they've got a quarterback playing at a high level. But what do they know deep down in Detroit? This regime, general manager on down, we can't devote enough of our energy, time, and commitment to the offensive line. That's got to be the best offense. I meant to ask Ben this. That's got to be the best offensive line in football, does it?
That's what KOC said last week.
Yeah. And by that, I mean, usually you say, well, they're either good pass blocking or good run blocking. They seem pretty damn good at both, right? Now, we got to Goff a couple times. And they did have the horseshoe because one time the ball came out.
Yep.
And it landed, I mean, basically right on top, or he was on top of it because it bounced right back to him, which was, and another key one was, and this may have been was this was, I think, the second half, where, was it Grenard?
Yes.
Coming from behind, and he's within a whisker of strip sacking him.
He hits down at the ball.
Exactly.
He gets there to get there.
And the Goff did a smart thing. He just moved up just a titch. And then completed a pass downfield.
It was a nice play.
It was a nice play, too. So there were some close calls there. I do think we had more meat on the bone offensively, though, because I thought we protected our guy pretty well. Now, we got to him, but a lot of their blitzes didn't work all that well. JJ seemed bitter. Maybe we'll get to that with Jonny Athletic. We also, when we come back, want to talk to Johnny about the WNBA Finals Game 5 and all the conspiracy theories that are now out there. I wonder if we could convince Johnny to wear, like, if the Wolves got to the NBA Finals this year, because he's in LA or going to be in LA.
Yep, he's leaving tomorrow.
Preview or and he's going to preview the season opener with us, to wear like a Timberwolves hoodie the night of Game 7, say, against the New York Knickerbockers. Now, it's still not quite as scandalous as the commissioner of a league,
right,
seemingly endorsing,
right,
the inevitable,
right.
New York, where are we? Let's win it, New York. Let's win it, Liberty. It's an embarrassing.
It's just weird. Like, no one in her life told her?
It's weird, and I again think it's embarrassing. Somebody needed to say
to
her.
Of course.
But I'm guessing no man could say it to her.
Right.
Because it'd be a human resources violation.
Good point.
But somebody needed to say,
we're going
with all due respect,
Skyline?
Commissioner, you can't. Don't do it. You're asking for
Cheryl
trouble.
Reeve over there,
yeah,
who notices everything?
Asking for difficulty. Johnny, on all of that.
Somebody thinks, by the way, Adam Silver needs to wear, like, the Prince purple outfit when the Wolves are in the finals.
That would be pretty good.
With the hat and everything.
That would be outstanding.
But anyway.
Wouldn't have a problem with it. Let's get Johnny's views on all of these things when we come back here in the fan. Jonny Athletic.
Jonny Athletic. Jonny Athletic. And he's on the Danberero right now.
Can't be in studio because he's preparing for his big road trip. Los Angeles, California. He'll be there.
I think he packs his own clothes, unlike Anthony Edwards. I think.
Johnny will be at the Fabulous Forum tomorrow night as the Wolves take on the Lakers, opening night, National Basketball Association. Then he's following the club to Sacramento, California as well. He joins us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. Somebody wanted me to ask you right off the top whether Rosen or Nicholson will have better seats, Lakers Wolves. I don't think Nicholson goes anymore, does he?
No, I think if he does, it's very few and far between.
Yeah.
I don't know that he's in the shape to be doing that, but Kilby will definitely have great seats. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, that's automatic. Yeah.
Meeting up with him. So, he'll be front and center and soaking it all up.
Perfect. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, let's start with the Wolves. Then I want to go Lynx, and then we'll maybe finish with some Vikings to wrap things up today. The club opens tomorrow night. You had a nice final look, kind of a primer, at the Wolves roster. I want to boil it down, what you wrote, to this simple question. Give me the interesting / intriguing players on this roster that you think realistically might not play all that much, at least early in this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the number one name that comes to mind right away is Rob Dillingham.
Yeah.
They draft him number 8 overall. Tim Connolly says on draft night that we picked him to play and he's going to have a big role and we have to get him ready for the playoffs and all those things. But then that was obviously before they make the cat trade and before Dante DiVincenzo comes in and shows that he's actually looks like a pretty decent initiator of the offense. And not just a catch and shoot guy or a shoot off the move type of a player. And when you listen to Coach Finch after the finale against Denver, the preseason finale, he was pretty tepid in his review of where Rob Dillingham is at. And very much just kind of,
that's what I love. This is one of the good things about Finchy. There are a lot of coaches who might feel the same thing about a highly touted draftee, but I give him credit. I mean, I don't think he's being cruel, but I think he's just observing. Nope. And he's not afraid to say it, which means he's got to be telling the player that too, which is what players, especially young players, need to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that, it's asking a lot of a 19-year-old to come in and play on a contender. And that's exactly what the Timberwolves are. They are a contender in the Western Conference. And so it was always going to be an uphill battle, but I think one of the things that fans and some media and people get excited about is you watch him play, and he is electric. He's absolutely a dynamic offensive player that can do things that jump off the screen when you're watching him. But what they need from him is to be a mature, smart player who really has a handle on his role and can get others involved. And there were some really good things they did. He had a 5-to-1 assist to turnover ratio in the preseason. That's really good. But it's clear that Chris Finch believes that he has a long way to go just in terms of feel for the game, all that. None of that is illegal. That should be expected. But I think for a lot of us who thought, wow, you trade into the draft again to get the number 8 pick. You need a bucket getter. Is this, are they just going to kind of throw him into the deep end? I don't think they are, Dan, and I think it's going to be few minutes early on and maybe even none at all on opening night, just depending on how the game goes.
All right, so do you buy the notion early that the coach is committed to playing 10, and who are the 10, if you do?
Yeah, I mean, I do think so, Dan. He has kind of said, and he's acknowledged that it's difficult to play 10, but I think with the depth that they have seen so far in the preseason and the talent that they have, I do think he wants to sparse out the minutes a little bit more, which means that maybe Mike Conley plays a few fewer minutes. Maybe Rudy Gobert doesn't play quite as much as they try and preserve those legs a little bit. But yeah, the 10 are the starting 5. And then you have Naz Reid, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Dante DiVincenzo. I think Joe Ingles is going to play early. And then that 10th spot, Dan, I think can be sort of a rotating kind of cast of characters depending on the night. Maybe it's Dillingham one night. Maybe it's Minot another night. Maybe it's Shannon or Garza or whoever. So I think that he can use that spot to at least wet the beaks of some of the guys at the end of the bench and give them something so that they're not just buried there. But I don't think it's going to be a major minutes allotment at all, but I do think he's going to try to do it early on in the season.
Will you be surprised if the team wins as many games as it did a year ago?
I will, just because of two things. One is I do think that there's going to be a little bit of acclimation period with Julius Randle especially, and this kind of new look team to kind of figure things out and get its legs underneath itself and really establish a chemistry. So I think that's going to take a little time. I think it's going to take time for Julius to knock off some of the rust from his long layoff and figure things out as well. But then also I just think the West is really, really difficult this year. You have Portland essentially as the only team that is a real pushover. And every other team in the conference has really talented guys that are going to be, most of which are going to be at least going for kind of play-in consideration or playoff consideration. And so I don't think that there are going to be many teams that win. There's not going to be a 65-win team in the conference this season. I think the win totals are going to be depressed a little bit just because there's going to be so much competition and parity. And so I think the over-under for the Wolves right now is like 51.5. I think I'm at 52 right now.
Okay.
But I don't think it's going to be 58 or 59 after 56 wins last year.
I think that's very fair because it does look like, well, you had mentioned you think maybe the Clippers end up taking a bit of a more of a fall.
They might.
Think, depending on the injury situation, et cetera. So, all right, let's talk. Maybe you can break the tie on what took place last night in Brooklyn, New York. I think Guardsy is, I'm not saying Guardsy, I don't want to misrepresent you, is saying officials explain everything about why the Lynx lost that game. But I think he's more on that edge, on that side than I am because of the way the game ended, the free throw disparity. And even, you linked to an athletic colleague had an interesting piece attempting to evaluate officiating in general. And here's the problem I have, not a problem with the piece, but here's the problem that I have with making it then, if there are legitimate officiating issues in the WNBA, and it sounds like there are, I have a problem just zeroing in then conveniently on the one game, the last one, the one moment that seemed to favor the home team, because to me, it's a much more global issue that would suggest that every team at various times has gotten screwed by maybe officiating that's not up to snuff. So where are you on who to blame for what took place last night? Because I'm firmly more on the side that it's more the Lynx responsibility than the Zebras. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this has been something that I've been thinking a lot about over the last 18 hours or so as I've kind of digested it and looked back on it. And I think I have two sort of beliefs here. One is I think that the Lynx were egregiously wronged at the end of the game. I thought that there were some just terrible calls that went against them. The traveling call that was not called against Stewart is an all-time miss from a gas perspective, and I don't think that Alana Smith really committed much of a foul to put Stewart on the line either. But to allow a player to take 5 steps before she gathers herself and then goes up for a shot was terrible. And I think the Lynx have every right to be incredibly upset at how all of that played out. And I think that there should be reform for officiating, including, as Cheryl Reeves said, a third party that is watching from outside of the arena, much like they do in the NBA, to kind of confer on these things.
I concur on that.
And help officials get to the right part. I think all of that needs to happen. And so any bit of criticism that the league gets and the referees get, they deserve it because they were terrible. That said, there were so many opportunities for the Lynx to still win that game. If Courtney Williams plays a C+ game instead of a D- game, they win. I mean, what the Lynx did to the Liberty was really impressive for most of that night. You shut down Sabrina Ionescu, you shut down Breanna Stewart, and they went, 3 for 19 from 3?
Yeah.
The Lynx did. They missed a bunch of layups. They scored 2 points in overtime.
0 for 6 and 5 turnovers as well in OT.
Yeah. Terrible. Yeah, I mean, they played really poorly. And so I don't think they can say it was all the officials' fault because they had a hand in it. And I don't think it's any secret that officiating is subpar in that league. You have to plan for that and brace for it. It stinks, though, Dan. It still does. It stinks to watch the game go the way that it did down the stretch like that. And it honestly, I was shocked that the WNBA commissioner is wearing what she was wearing and that the league is tweeting what it's tweeting. All of it was terrible optically. I think it was just egregiously bad that way. That said, I cannot say that it was exclusively on the officials. I don't think there was a fix in that way, but man, it looked bad. Yeah, it looked bad in the moment.
And it was bad basketball. It was close basketball.
It was terrible basketball.
It was just a bad game, which we should be able to say, just as we would with NBA games. The problem I always have with reducing it to the last game, as obvious as it is, given it is the last game, is, we can start down the road. Like the free throw disparity was great this last game. It was almost as great the game before. I think it was game 4 is 20-9 in favor of the Lynx. And I'm loath to necessarily assume then that means that necessarily the Liberty got screwed. Maybe it was the way the two teams played. I never buy the notion of it should be about the same number of free throws. Well, some of that is dictated by performance. But if you're going to go down the road, I don't think you can leave it out. And that's what people are doing. The aggrieved Lynx people, fans, and quite frankly, the head coach is selective, like any coach, about which moments of inconsistency is she interested in paying attention to. And I that's why I can't play. I just am not as interested in playing the game. I wouldn't have called the foul. I agree on the last play, given the way the game was played. But again, the game before, there were, if we really analyze it, there were some calls I think that the Lynx you could argue got as well, and that's notwithstanding what had even taken place in the game we stole, game 1 as well. And that's my fear of going too far down the road. That doesn't mean there aren't officiating issues that absolutely need to be explored. I just don't want to play the game if the people I'm arguing with are only interested in remembering the disparities that suit their conspiracy.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think the main takeaway is that it does underscore the need for reform of the officiating process and some steps to be taken to address the complaints that both teams and most people around the league, frankly, it seems to have about the state of officiating in this league. And here is the other part of this, Dan, that I think the WNBA has been slow to understand and slow to realize is there are now exponentially more eyeballs on these games than ever before. That's a very good thing for the league. But a lot of the stuff that was subpar, that was, just not professional enough, the things that they got away with over the years, they're not going to get away with anymore. And so they have to understand they are stepping into a whole new world within a huge audience, and there's going to be attention paid to the officials. There's going to be demands made. There's going to be more gambling on these games. There's going to be all sorts of things that are scrutinized that they have never been used to before. And I think that the league has been caught flat-footed and has been very slow to respond to that. And they better sit down and real quick after the season is over and really take a hard look at everything they're doing, because this is a completely different environment that they're operating in now, and they have to adjust to it.
I'll give you the cliched toss-up question on Vikings-Lions that you could watch almost any day on PTI, one of my favorite shows. In fact, we got a good text coming in on the Lynx discussion they had on the program. Did the Lions win the game, or did the Vikings lose it yesterday afternoon at the People's Stadium?
Oh, I thought the Lions won it, Dan. Certainly the Vikings, with a lot of the penalties, some of the sloppiness that they had, were partially to blame, I think. But Jared Goff was unbelievable. Yeah. Every throw that he needed to make in every big spot, he made it. And you had the kicker make the field goal. They responded when the Vikings had roared all the way back and got back into the game. They responded early after the silly fake punts that they tried didn't work, and they fell behind by 10. I think the Lions are the best team in the NFC, and I think they are one of the very best in the entire NFL. And they looked the part. It was a very good win for them, and they went and took it. And I don't think that the Vikings have a whole lot of things to lament other than just got to play a little bit better.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair to say. The The difficult position for the Vikings going into the game was everybody knew they weren't going to go undefeated, right? You're going to lose. Mm-hmm. You're playing a good team. But the sad part, I think, the frustrating part has to be, man, if you find a way to steal that game or win it as opposed to lose it, you're sitting in such a good position in not just the division, but the whole conference. I think the Vikings would have been 2 games clear of everybody in the conference. Mm-hmm. Now you got a race, right? You got a race in the division. Lions are technically ahead of you with the same record because of the early tiebreaker. Packers found a way to win on a late field goal. What do they have? 2 losses, I think. And the Bears, I don't think are that good, but they also are sitting there because of a bad schedule with only 2 losses. Now it feels very much like the whole thing has been opened up again, and pretty much anybody in the division can say, yeah, we're in this thing.
For sure, yeah. It was certainly an opportunity missed. I mean, when you lead late like the Vikings did at home, you want to be able to close that out. I don't think it's one of those games where you say the sky is falling or like, right. Oh, these guys are frauds because of it, because it was a really good competitive game against a great team, and they came up just a little bit short. If they get the 2-point conversion, maybe they're going to overtime, and maybe it goes the other way. So the Vikings don't have a whole lot to hang their head about, but they can kind of kick themselves and say, yeah, we did miss an opportunity to take a bigger lead, and I wouldn't call it commanding, but certainly a significant lead early on in this thing and really position themselves well. And now they have a fight on their hands. I think what I'm going to be really interested to see, Dan, is how does this defense respond in a short turnaround? Because this is the first time all year where, man, they got run all over the place.
They did.
The Lions ran circles around them. Ben Johnson called a great game. Goff played a great game. And so how does this defense really kind of lick its wounds, maybe feel a little bit humbled and get back at it? Because that was the big thing that stood out to me is wow, the Lions have an answer for everything the Vikings are doing defensively, and we just have not seen that all year from an opponent.
As we wrap up, let's circle back to get to one other thing related to Game 5. Again, the Lynx numbers were scary, especially in the second half. 28 points scored the last 25 minutes. You mentioned Williams 2 for 14, pulled several times, and there were times where, she just didn't look like she was ready to play. And Heidemann then, out of desperation, was put in, and then she would make a bad play, and then out of desperation, I think Reeve would, all right, well, let's give Williams, see if she can get, let's see if we get 2 minutes of magic out of her, right? Because that's what she's done this whole season. There were 0 for 6 in overtime, 5 turnovers. I do believe, though, that it is fair to say that part of why, for both teams, especially in the second half, the quality of play was so putrid was the either unwillingness or inability to call fouls. And people, I mentioned earlier, people love to talk about, let them play. I didn't come to see the referees. Well, I think we saw the limits of that philosophy because I got to believe if more fouls had been called, maybe you have a better chance to have some kind of offensive flow. And there was literally no second half offensive flow in that game, largely, I think, because the players said, well, we can just hammer people because whatever the reason, the decision's been made that, quote unquote, they're going to let us play.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I do think that even in the WNBA or in the NBA and all of the Game 7s that I've watched over the years, you talk to people who play in those games and coach those games, and they will tell you that a lot of times it is a rock fight. It is really ugly because there is so much pressure and so much riding on it. These are human beings that there's desperation there, and definitely they can get swept up in that moment, and it happens regularly. It's very rare that it's a beautifully played closeout game in a Game 7 situation in the NBA, and I think it's similar in Game 5. But yes, when you add to that all of that pressure, then you add the element of you can just get hammered in the lane, going to the basket or even out on the perimeter, and they're hand checking and doing all those things. It does only make it more difficult to get any kind of feel, rhythm, execution going. And I thought the Lynx in the first half did a pretty darn good job in the face of that.
Yes, they did.
Executing, backdoor cuts, all of that stuff. Which makes it, again, even a little more frustrating. Gosh, you're calling it that way the whole time, and then Alana Smith has her hand straight up, and there's really literally no contact at all, or maybe a little bit on Brianna Stewart, and you call that. That was the frustrating thing to me, is because, man, Brianna Stewart was a disaster in the game.
She was.
Absolutely terrible.
Not for the first time.
So was Ionescu, and just got kind of bailed out that way. So it was unfortunate. But, yes, I think the way that it was called for much of that game only compounded the ugliness. But, Courtney Williams, not just the missed shots, but the decision making was terrible as well. So it was all around.
Some wise guy, I don't remember who it was, said, if you recall, Ionescu hit that big three from like the logo earlier in the series, and then I think her quote after the game was something like, not bad for second team all in WNBA. And somebody threw out, well, if they want to update that and on the basis of what they saw in the last game, she might not make all WNBA fifth team. So calm down a little bit, because as you said, the number of shots, what did they go for together? I think they were, was it 5 for 34? Let me see if I can find the number. 5 for 31.
Yeah, at best.
5 for 31, Stewart and Ionescu. So would you, if the Wolves made the finals this year, not WNBA, NBA finals, would you consider wearing Timberwolves Lululemon pants, or something that indicated where your allegiances were?
I would. Well, what I would demand of Adam Silver is at least a tie with the spoon and cherry or something.
Yes, something.
Right?
Yes, right.
Like, there's got to be some sort of retribution for what we suffered in watching Kathy Engelbert wear what she wore, and so we got to get it from someone in a position of authority. Because as much as I'd like to say, I can't affect the outcomes of games. I try.
Yeah,
I try to stir the pot. Right. I try to clickbait. I try to get people rattled, but it doesn't really work. So yeah, Adam Silver, get that tie ready. Put Prince's face on it or something, because we demand retribution for what we saw last night.
Do Timberwolves Zubas exist? Zubas are from, of course, another lifetime. Can you still get a pair of Timberwolves Zubas?
You can find them somewhere.
Somewhere.
You'd have to go the old, like, the old blue and green.
Yes,
like
absolutely.
That version.
Yeah.
Oh, it would be classic.
It'd be outstanding.
How could you not love something like that?
I'll wear those.
Also very comfortable to wear in a tight, warm arena. Why wouldn't you in June?
Yeah.
Like, I'd do that.
By the way, you're staying for the Vikings-Rams game Thursday, right? You're in California, Southern and Northern. I assume you're going to go right back to Southern after your Sacramento stop to cover Vikings-Rams.
Well, the problem, Dan, is that the Sacramento game's on Thursday. So
I didn't realize
they're
that.
On the same day.
That's a problem,
and as good as the Vikings have looked, I mean, it's quite possible that the Wolves are the future NBA champions.
Yeah.
So, like, I gotta hitch my wagon to that train and be there. But we'll certainly have it second screen and be breaking it all down from press row in a beautiful Sacramento Kings arena, which is one of my favorites in the league.
You love that place, don't you? Is that Arco?
Great.
Is that
cowbells?
Is that Arco Arena? Or is that a little?
It used to be.
Yeah.
It used to be. It was
in another lifetime.
We still got the cowbells there.
Yeah.
Beautiful spot right downtown, easy to get around. Great fans. So Ant loves playing there. So should be a lot of fun.
Ant finished runner-up in the Tim Conley ping pong tournament last night, which, by the way, you didn't show up for. There's a lot of people muttering about your lack of commitment to the bit in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And Ant was beaten by a woman who I don't even know who she was representing, but she was very good. And
wow.
Yeah, she basically lit him up. Yeah. He got to the finals, to his credit. I think, although Conley made it sound like Conley played him first round. And somebody said, well, Conley went easy on him because he doesn't want Ant to pout. He wants him to advance. So I don't know if that's convenient logic or that, that maybe actually Ant just beat his ass. I'm not exactly sure. But it was quite the event. I think I won over Conley. Early.
Yeah, how was the MC?
Well, I'm not great at it. It's really not a strength. I did okay, I thought. Not, I'm not a good one-liner guy in that setting. But I think I did annoy him a little bit because when I introduced him, I said something to the effect of, and here's the individual who I think perhaps more than any other is responsible for the poll ads wanting to sell the Minnesota Twins. And I'm not sure he expected that might be coming. I mean it. I kind of believe it, but I don't know that, he doesn't want to get into the business of stirring up other teams. He is. Everybody, we all get along. We all come from the same amoeba. We're all rooting for one another. I don't need any snarky comments from the host of this thing about, my responsibility because we're trying to win a title and they're not.
Yeah, no, he's very kumbaya. So, I mean, the only thing that I think you could have done that would have rattled him more would be just to say something like, hey, are you setting the bar too high for the other GMs in this town? Like, are they all going to get fired because of you? And like that probably would have got him going just a little bit more. But yeah, I was sorry to miss it. Yeah. My son turned 12 years old and this was a big birthday for him after the last year. So, I had to sit this one out, but I'll be back next year, and I can't wait for your return trip.
Well, I don't think I'll be invited.
You're like Billy Crystal now. You have to be out there time and time again.
Here's where I had to be honest with him because he said, "Look, when you get to the finals, and a lot of people are surrounding the one table, maybe do a little play-by-play." I said, "I got to be honest with you, Tim. I'm not a play-by-play. I mean, I was when I was 9. I taped baseball games, but first of all." Ping pong play-by-play, I think, is challenging. And
that is.
Secondly, it's just not a strength of mine, so I ended up not really giving him I think he wanted, some play-by-play to really, sort of spruce up the whole thing and get the excitement going.
You wanted you to be John Barry, the in-arena host.
And probably that's who should have been doing it quite there, because he would have been very good.
Was there a musical number that you did or anything like that to open the show?
No tap dance of any sort. We played it, fairly straight. From start to, Rudy was there. Your guy Naz Reid was there. Justin Morneau was there. I had a nice conversation with him. You know what's interesting about Morneau? We're running late here, but you know how some players, they get done playing and they maybe it's easy to pick up a few pounds here or look a little bit non-chiseled. Morneau looks great. He looks outstanding. He looks like he could play tomorrow.
He plays hockey with Joe and all those guys, I think, too, right? He's got a rink.
Is that right?
His own rink.
Boom, there it is.
Yep, and so he's in shape. You'll like this real quickly. Last year I was at it, and Joe Mauer was there.
Yes.
And he was kind of hanging out. We both got there a little early. He had no one else to hang out with, so it was
you were
me
his
and
guy?
him, just like, yeah. So we had a great time catching up, and he was just like, hey, you want a drink? I'm like, yeah, sure, Joe, let's go have a drink. And he was kind of on an island, so it was the two of us hanging out for a lot of it. It was a good time.
Wait a minute. Joe just drank milk, right? Come on, he didn't have he wasn't boozing it, was he?
It might have been ginger ale.
Maybe ginger ale. Yeah. Did you?
He
were
probably
you
drank
honest?
Summit or some Minnesota beer.
Yeah,
because he's Joe.
Were you honest with him though that you're not really a ball guy?
No, of course not. Oh. No, I was just like, I was nothing but flattering him and just making him feel good. He'd been out of the game for a little while, so I wanted to get him back into the public eye and loosen him up a little bit. And,
that makes sense.
And so, I tried to put him at ease a little bit. Yeah, I didn't say, hey, Joe, to be honest with you, I didn't watch any of your games for the last 4 years of your career. I bailed on that.
Finchy,
I left that for another time.
I had a nice conversation with Finchy. He was very kind, and then I did my best to go to bat for Luka because Luka is another one of the celebrity ping pong players, and I did everything I could to say if you don't give this guy 10 minutes a game this year, release him, to trade him, just to give him a chance. It's time it is indeed time. #free Luka.
Let's go. Maybe tomorrow night. Maybe he goes right at Anthony Davis. Just takes it right to him.
Who's to say? You saw it. Joker wanted no part of him the other day.
Wanted nothing to do with it, Dan. Didn't take a shot.
No.
Didn't even take a shot. He was frozen from Luka's greatness.
We'll let you go. Safe travels to California, and we'll be reading and checking in later.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Johnny. That is John Krasinski.
I want to update people. I appreciate Halvey jumping in and putting together a stream online for everybody to watch. And a lot of people have watched. It's kind of crazy.
Oh, that's right. You did. You reminded me of that. You reminded me to make sure I didn't pick my nose, which I don't think I did. I think I have been biting my nails.
Yeah, that's fine. We can handle that. Yeah. But the iHeart issue has been fixed now. So if people want to pick up the last 20 minutes of the show, they can go back to the iHeart app. Everywhere should be good. So we're going to cut the StreamYard out. If you're watching on one of the social media channels, we're going to turn the cameras off. Go back to regular scheduled programming, but thanks to Halby for hustling and getting people there.
I do appreciate Halby's commitment to the bit. I mean, generally, we view ourselves in the afternoon as everybody's gone. Nobody cares. It's that afternoon show. They're on their own.
He hustled
anyway,
at his house.
To his credit, he took care of it. So, yeah, all the best to our guy, Halby. Behind schedule, we'll pause, come back, and get to a couple of very good texts that have come in. Don't
miss the high-stakes action as the UST Tommies battle the Minnesota Golden Gophers at XL Energy Center, October 26th. That's this Saturday. You can enter for a chance to win tickets to this game that promises to be unforgettable, and it's really fun. KFAN.com keyword contest. KFAN.com keyword contest.
What is that saying? You don't know what you have until you lose it? No, what's the saying?
Well, the Pave Paradise and Put Up a Parking Lot song.
Yeah.
Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone?
Well, maybe
Big Yellow Taxi.
To that extent, this little experiment, the way it's played out, is a blessing. The experiment I'm talking about is that we've had some sort of iHeartRadio glitch that has prevented, when people thought they were tuning into our show, they were getting instead, in many cases, the Fox Sports national feed. And apparently, among the items being discussed is Aaron Rodgers picking his nose, which would seem like not something to spend a lot of time on.
A couple of segments.
I guess you milk 2 segments out of it. It's a bits show. You know that.
It's all about bits.
They do a lot of bits.
Dumb it down.
So we've tried to get that rectified on our end, and it seems like it's kind of a complicated deal. But in the interim, I'm like overwhelmed with texts from people basically saying, "Thank God you're back. I look forward to Bumper every day here, Monday through Friday. The past 16 years, I've been at Omaha from Woodbury. Glad to hear your voice back. Yay. You're back. I was missing you guys already. Let me see if I can get a couple more. There were some snarky ones.
Of course.
I'd rather listen to Barney the Purple Dinosaur.
He's tomorrow, 9 to noon.
Which is fine. I'm okay with that.
That's what makes the fan good.
But yeah, several people. So maybe I know we didn't plan this like the WNBA planned the New York Liberty to win the whole thing.
Right.
But unwittingly, maybe we've hit on something here that makes people appreciate us more, that without us,
they won't take us for granted now.
They would be stuck with some goofy national broadcast that, really maybe doesn't quite move the needle for the average Rube.
The other thing I did notice, too, and this was unintentional, is we mentioned Halby threw the stream up on KFAN.com/watch to give people an option, which, as we all know, is reserved exclusively for the morning show, and then program password and initials, essentially, which is also the morning show. I was taking a look at the numbers, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen numbers like that, speaking of initials or program passwords, since like Carly Zucker and Marnie Gellner were on the same team.
Wow.
I mean,
that's saying
the
something.
Stream, exactly.
That's saying
the stream
something.
numbers were big, basically just to look at you.
Prodigious.
Talk to Jonny Athletic. Yeah. So we appreciate people jumping on the stream.
Yes.
A little boost in the afternoon.
God knows I wouldn't even know how to do it, but a lot of people are a lot smarter and a lot younger.
They send out a link and you just have to click it.
You just click it.
Yes.
It's as simple as the click.
It's pretty good.
Okay.
Pretty smooth, pretty easy.
Fair to
big numbers, so we appreciate that.
That's good. Yeah, we do appreciate it. Well, it is a big day. Obviously, the day after a Vikings game, win or lose.
A Purple Monday.
Plus the WNBA Finals game number 5. We do need one more break, do we not?
Correct.
Let's do it. We got caught up. We went a little bit long with Johnny. We'll remind you of some highlights from today's program and what we have coming up on tomorrow's show.
Head over to KFAN.com, make the keyword contest, enter for your chance to win a Papa Murphy's family meal deal, including family-sized pepperoni pizza, cookie dough, and classic cheesy bread, all at KFAN.com, keyword contest to enter. The show wrap brought to you by American Pressure, commercial-grade pressure washers since 1975.
It's the Bumper to Bumper show wrap.
It's a football night tonight on the Fan. Vikings Rewind will follow us at the bottom of the hour, and then it's a Monday Night Football affair. I believe it's the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Tampa Bay Bucks in Tampa.
Ravens, I think. That's what Abbott had, but I'm going to look.
You might be right.
I think you might be right. Ravens at Bucks.
My bad.
That's all right.
Why did I think it was? Oh, you know what it was? They were doing a bunch of stuff on the Arizona Cardinals. On
because
ESPN.
there's 2 games. And that one's on
that's the
News Talk, or
right.
the Plus, I mean.
That's what it is. It's another one of those double headers, and that's Chargers versus the Arizona Cardinals. That's the later game, I believe, right? That's the later start?
Yes, sir. And that's on the Plus.
And that's on the Plus. So tomorrow, we're moving some stuff around because Louis, we're out early because of Minnesota Wild Florida hockey game. That's going to get us done earlier than usual. So Louis is going to join on Wednesday. Russo probably on Thursday. Tomorrow will be Seifert. And Alan Horton, the radio voice of the Minnesota Timberwolves, will join us from Los Angeles, California. Lots of Vikings talking points early. We did eventually chat with Cam Bynum today, Ben Leber, and Jonny Athletic. Somebody noted that opening night in the NBA has three of the most historic franchises: Knicks, Celtics, Lakers, and wait for it, your Minnesota Timberwolves.
Think about it.
I hadn't thought of it that way.
You know what we call that?
What?
The big boy table.
You think that's what it is?
That's the big boy table,
yeah,
is it
you
not?
might be right. Yeah, it's pretty close. Quite close, actually. See if I can find on the fly here the PTI. Oh, on PTI, this is from Mark. Tony Kornheiser agreed with Danny B. Mike was totally with Cheryl Reeve and that the officiating was awful, and she had every right to say it was stolen. Stick to your guns, JG. I didn't get to with I ran out of time with Johnny because a texter wants to know why is Shannon down that low in terms of the pecking order for playing time. I think it's going to be one of those years where it's really going to largely depend on how the combinations work, injuries, and circumstance. It is really the best teams have pleasant problems like this, and that is that because ordinarily if you're an okay team, the four guys at the end of the bench almost feel like they're meaningless, right? But what the best teams do want to do is they want to have everybody as relevant as possible. And just because Shannon is low now, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to stay low. An opportunity might afford itself. And it is where I think Finchie's going to make the big bucks this year, is figuring out, being creative with the combinations. Because they want to find ways to integrate those guys, the new guys, get them experience. But everything changed with the Cat trade. As soon as you get a wing player back of DiVincenzo's ability, you're going to go with that guy. And you should, because I always felt, as much as I like the draft picks, the premise was a little bit shaky that you could almost demand from the opening jump that those guys be the reason you improve from a year ago, right? It was going to have to be with those guys. We couldn't sign any big free agents. And I was intrigued by it because I like their talent, but deep down, I have to believe Finchie loves having the tried and true talent and performance and experience that Dante represents. I hope he's, by the way, not on the ball too much. I get they like him potentially as the backup point. They think he's good enough to do it. I'm not arguing with that. But for me, at their best, that he's running off screens. He's hitting shots. He's slashing to the basket, right? I mean, that to me is still his strength more than necessarily playmaking. So that'll all start tomorrow night, and Alan Horton will give us a preview. He may have some thoughts on that, too. Vikings already preparing for a Thursday night game against the Los Angeles Rams. Once upon a time, they did move to Anaheim. They were at LA Coliseum.
Yeah.
Then they moved to Anaheim. And now they're back in their posh and Tony SoFi State. You love it out there. Have you been there?
I have not been to SoFi.
I'm surprised.
I know. I missed a couple of opportunities.
Travels.
I know. Maybe I should go Thursday.
Really should. We'll start it all over again tomorrow, beginning at 3 o'clock. We'll talk then.
Just change the space. Be happy. Enjoy it.